My son begged me to tone my birthday down so his mother-in-law would not feel overshadowed. I did not tone anything down, and he did not show up. My name is Maris Ellington. I am 67 years old. The bistro was warm that evening, but the warmth came from people, not the lights. Friends from the neighborhood trickled in one by one. A few of my oldest customers hugged me as soon as they walked through the door. 2 former line cooks stopped by after their shifts ended at other restaurants, still smelling faintly of grilled onions and ambition. I smiled, truly grateful they came, even though I kept glancing toward the entrance without meaning to. The table near the window was set for everyone I loved. A smaller table beside it had only one chair, the chair I had reserved for my son. I told myself not to look at it, but my eyes kept drifting over anyway, as if my heart could not resist checking again and again. Every time the door opened, laughter washed in from the chilly Portland street. Boots stomped on the mat. Hands shook. Voices greeted me, but not his, not Kaylin's. I carried out plates with the kitchen staff. Even though they tried to take the trays from me, habit, I suppose. Feeding people has always been how I show love. Feeding my son was how I raised him after his father left when he was still learning the alphabet. For decades, it was just the 2 of us. 2 mismatched puzzle pieces that somehow held. By 7:30, nearly every guest had arrived. My staff brought out the lemon tart they made as a surprise, candles flickering gently along the crust. They urged me to make a wish. I pressed my palms together, closed my eyes, and realized the only wish I could think of sounded more like a plea. Someone called out, "Take a picture, Maris." I reached for my phone without thinking, and the screen lit up. A notification from social media sat at the top. I should have ignored it, but I tapped it anyway. There he was. Kaylin sat at a long wooden table in someone's dining room, surrounded by soft string lights and mismatched linen napkins. His smile was wide, unburdened. Across from him, his mother-in-law raised a glass. The caption said something about a cozy family night, simple home cooking, nothing extravagant. Nothing extravagant. I turned off the screen and set the phone upside down. My heart did not break in one clean snap. It pinched inward, slow and aching, like an old wound stiffening in the cold. A server passed behind me and murmured, "He might still be on his way." I nodded automatically. Even though both of us knew the truth, he had chosen another table, another family, another version of himself that did not include the woman who raised him. Someone at the bar started singing softly, pulling the crowd into a loose chorus of happy birthday. I forced a smile and blew out the candles. Guests clapped. Glasses clinked. My restaurant filled with sound. But all I could feel was the empty space where my son should have been. When the last plate was cleared and the final guests hugged me goodnight, the bistro settled into silence. The only light left was the one above the front counter, casting a gentle glow over the chair that stayed empty all evening. I wiped down the table myself. My hands moved slowly, not because they were old, but because the truth was finally settling. He had not been late. He had not forgotten. He had made a choice. And the next morning, that choice would follow me into a conversation I was not ready to hear. That was when the phone rang, and Kaylin's name appeared on the screen. The morning before my birthday, Kaylin called while I was arranging a delivery order at the bistro. I answered with flour on my hands, and my heart already softening the way it always did when I heard his voice. "Mom," he said, breathless, as if he had rehearsed what came next. "I need to ask you something. What's going on?" I wiped my hands on my apron and leaned against the counter. He hesitated, and the hesitation told me more than the words ever could. "So, this dinner you're planning," he began carefully. "Can you tone it down?" My hand froze mid-motion. "Tone it down?" Yeah. He rushed. Just keep it simple. Nothing too big. Nothing too… Too what? Kaylin, too fancy, he whispered, like the word itself was dangerous. Mom, please. A short silence sat between us. You have seen my birthday dinners for the past 10 years, I said quietly. I do not throw galas. I know, Mom, I know, he said quickly. But Harper's family, her mom, she's used to simpler things. She gets uncomfortable around, well, you know… No, I replied. I do not know, he exhaled loudly. She gets uncomfortable around people who have more… people who look like they're showing off. I am not showing off, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I run a small bistro. I cook for the people I love. I'm not saying you are, he said, voice rising. It's just Mom. You know how her family is. They're sensitive. If they hear about your birthday and it looks like some big fancy event, it'll make things awkward for me. So you want me to shrink my own celebration, I said, so your mother-in-law doesn't feel overshadowed by a 67-year-old woman hosting dinner in her own restaurant. He groaned, a frustrated sound. It's not like that. Then what is it like? He didn't answer at first. I could almost hear him choosing his words, shaping them to sound gentler than the truth. Mom, he finally said, you know how hard I'm trying with Harper's family. They're particular. If I show up to your dinner and it's too elegant, too put together, too mine. He stopped. The silence stretched thin. I just need things to be easy, he said softly. Please, for once. His voice hit something tender in me, something familiar, something… The part of me that always wanted to make life easy for him, the part that carried him through fevers, school projects, breakup nights, and the long stretches when I worked double shifts so he wouldn't feel the absence of anything except his father. Kaylin, I said slowly, this is my birthday. I know, he whispered. But can you just not make it? Too much. Too much for who? My voice trembled. For you. He inhaled sharply. Mom, please don't make this harder. I'm trying to keep everyone comfortable. Everyone except me. But I didn't say it. Not then. All right, I murmured. We'll talk later. Thank you, he said, relieved. You don't know how much this helps. He hung up first. I stood alone behind the counter, the dough overproofing, the phone still warm in my hand, and the truth settling in with a quiet heaviness. My son wasn't afraid of the party being too fancy. He was afraid of me being too much. After I hung up with Callan, I sat on the little stool behind the counter, phone in my lap, apron dusted with flour, and the words he used started echoing back at me. Tone it down, too fancy, too much. I had heard versions of those words all my life. The first time I remember shrinking myself on purpose, Kaylin was 5. His father, Ian, was still around then, still pretending he wanted to be a husband. We were getting ready for a dinner at his firm. I had put on a blue dress I loved, a shade that made my eyes look brighter. I walked out of the bedroom, smoothing the hem, feeling almost pretty. Ian looked up from tying his tie and frowned. Maris, that is a bit much. Don't you think, he asked? What do you mean? I laughed. Uncertain. The partners' wives. They are very understated, he said. Simple. Conservative. We do not want to draw attention. I glanced down at my dress. It is just a dress, Ian. He sighed. The weary kind of sigh people use when they want you to feel foolish. You know how you can get animated, loud when you are excited. Just keep it low-key. All right, do not embarrass me. The words landed hard then. They still do. I went back into the bedroom, took off the blue dress, and put on a beige one that made me feel like wallpaper. All evening I smiled politely, spoke spoke softly and laughed into my glass. When one of the partners complimented my graceful restraint, Ian squeezed my knee under the table, pleased. After the divorce, I told myself things would change because I would no longer be shrinking for a man who did not love me. But the habit stuck. 10 years later, I was standing in a grocery store aisle with a stack of coupons in my hand and an 11-year-old boy slouching behind me. "Mom, can we please just go?" Kaylin muttered. Glancing around, "We are almost done," I said, scanning the list. "If we use these, we can get enough to last the week." He tugged on my sleeve. "People from my school shop here," and I frowned, clipping another coupon to the cart. "And they are going to see you counting coupons like that," he hissed. "Can you at least not talk so loud about it?" I looked at him, cheeks flushed, eyes darting like he expected his classmates to materialize out of the cereal aisle. "Kaylin, this is how we stretch money," I said softly. "So we can afford your field trips and your cleats. I did not ask you to be like this," he snapped. "Could you just stop making a big deal out of everything?" The words stung, but I only nodded. At the checkout, I handed the coupons to the cashier quietly, careful not to say anything extra. On the drive home, I turned the radio up so he would not hear me breathe. Years after that, when I opened the bistro, I thought I had finally made a place where I did not have to shrink. For a while, it worked. In my kitchen, my voice carried. I called orders, corrected plates, laughed loud, praised louder. Regulars told me they loved that I always came out to talk, to tell stories about the food. Then came the first time Kaylin brought a serious girlfriend to dinner. It was not Harper yet. It was a girl named Elise. She wore a neat blazer and looked around with polite curiosity. "This place is more charming than I expected," she said as I poured her wine. "Charming," I repeated, smiling. "I will take that." Later that night, Kaylin lingered by the dish pit while I scrubbed pans. "Mom," he said gently, "maybe next time you do not have to talk so much at the table." "You overwhelmed her a little." "I was just being friendly," I said. "I know. You just get very intense," he said. "It can be a lot for people who are not used to you." I swallowed whatever else I might have said. "All right. Next time I will let you do the talking." There were a lot of next times. When he got engaged to Harper, I volunteered to cater their engagement party as my gift. I suggested a menu. Excited, hands tracing shapes in the air as I described it. Harper smiled. But her smile slipped at the edges. "Maybe we keep it simple," she suggested. "My mom does not really do rich food. She is more casseroles and potlucks." "I can make casseroles," I said. Kaylin stepped in. "What she means is, Mom, do not overcomplicate it. We do not need the full Maris treatment." They laughed. I laughed too, but more quietly. Every time. It was some version of the same message. Less, softer, quieter, smaller. Standing behind my bistro counter the morning before my 67th birthday. Flour drying on my hands. My son's request still ringing in my ears. I realized I had been practicing the art of making myself smaller for decades. Only this time, something in me resisted folding down again. I picked up the phone, scrolled to the guest list, and stared at the names. Friends. Neighbors, former staff, people who knew me as I was, not as someone edited down to fit into another family's comfort. I did not call to cancel. I did not cut the menu in half. I did not change the linens I had chosen. I looked at the empty reservation line where my son's name should have been, then entered it myself. 1 seat, 7 o'clock, table by the window. If he decided not to sit in it, that choice would be his. Kaylin called the next morning while I was unlocking the front door of the bistro. I held the phone between my shoulder and cheek, twisting the key slowly, a part of me already bracing. "Mom," he said, voice soft, almost gentle. "I am so sorry I missed last night, I guess." I inhaled once, steady and quiet. "All right," I said. "Tell me what happened." "Well," he started. "Harper's mom put together this little dinner, totally last minute. She has been feeling down lately, and Harper did not want to disappoint her, so you chose to be there." I said, no anger, just truth. "I did not choose." He snapped back too quickly. "It just happened. And then it felt weird to leave early. You know how she gets." "I do not." I answered. He sighed hard into the phone. "Mom, I am trying to explain. I am listening." There was a pause, the kind filled with words someone wishes they could say, but does not dare. It was just easier. He muttered, finally. My hand tightened around the door handle. "Easier than coming to your mother's birthday." "That is not what I meant," he said sharply. "You are twisting it." I repeated what you said. "Well, you know I did not mean it like that." He insisted. "You always do this. You make everything so heavy." I closed my eyes. "Kaylin, I did not call you. You called me." He went quiet for a beat. "I just want us to move on. I do not want this to turn into a whole thing." "I understand," I said. "You want things simple." "Yes." He breathed out, relieved. "Exactly. Simple, but simple for whom?" He hesitated. "Mom, please do not start." "I am not starting anything," I said gently. "I am just asking what you mean by simple." "I mean," he said slowly, "can we just let last night go? I am sorry. That is what matters." It was the first time I heard the word sorry and felt absolutely nothing follow behind it. No accountability, no ownership, just a request for the conversation to end. I leaned my back against the door. "Kaylin, I appreciate you calling, but I need you to hear something." What he asked, guarded. "This is the first birthday in 37 years you have missed," I said, "and I want to understand why it felt easier not to show up." He exhaled loudly, irritation creeping in. "Because things are different now. I have a wife. I have in-laws. I have responsibilities. It is not just you anymore. I never asked to be the only one." I said, "You are making me feel guilty," he protested. "I am telling you how I feel," I answered calmly. "The guilt is coming from somewhere else." He did not respond. For the first time, I did not rush to soothe him. I did not say, "It is fine, honey," or "You did your best," or "I understand." I let the silence settle exactly where it belonged. "Mom," he said finally, voice smaller, "can we just talk later?" "Yes," I said quietly. "We can." When I hung up, the familiar ache was there, but something else pressed against it, a small, steady awareness. I had spent years cushioning his missteps, and now I could see that every cushion had taught him exactly how softly he was allowed to land. I met Lydia Rowan for the first time on an early autumn afternoon, long before the birthday mess, long before I understood the quiet rules of her world. Kaylin and Harper had invited me to a casual lunch at their new townhouse. "Just family," Harper had said, light and airy, as if nothing about that invitation carried weight. I brought a bottle of wine and a loaf of rosemary bread from the bistro. When I stepped through the doorway, Harper greeted me with a warm hug, but her eyes flicked downward to the bread for half a second, as if already calculating its place on her table. "Mom, you made it," Kaylin said, kissing my cheek. "Come sit. We are still waiting on Harper's mom." I didn't have to wait long. Lydia Rowan entered the house the way some people step onto a stage chin high. Smile polite, eyes already scanning the room for something to critique. She wore a pale peach dress that looked as though it needed its own insurance policy. The moment she spotted me, Her expression settled into something soft and assessing. "You must be Maris," she said, extending her hand. Her voice dipped in honey but firm at the base. "We've heard so much about you." "I hope good things," I replied. Shaking her hand, she smiled without answering. "Harper, darling, where should I put my coat?" She draped it over the back of a chair before Harper could respond. Then her eyes drifted to the bread on the counter. "Oh, homemade." "Yes," I said. "From my bistro." "How lovely," she replied, dragging the word just long enough to dull it. Kaylin stepped in quickly. "Mom owns a restaurant. Lydia. She's being modest. She is a fantastic cook." Lydia turned to him. "Of course she is. Dear, everyone has their talents." Then she looked at me. "I do hope today's lunch isn't too overwhelming for you. We keep things simple in our family." "Simple is nice," I said. "I enjoy simple." "Good," she replied. "Some people mistake presentation for substance. I prefer sincerity." Harper shot me a small apologetic look, one I did not understand at the time. We all sat. Harper served a light salad, grilled chicken, and a dish that seemed to be a staple in her family, some kind of potato bake with crushed crackers on top. Lydia described it as our comfort food, though she said it with the seriousness of someone presenting a national treasure. When Harper offered me a scoop, Lydia interjected, "Maris may not be used to this kind of cooking. I grew up on casseroles." I said, "I like them." Lydia's eyebrows lifted in surprise, as if she hadn't expected me to have had a childhood that included normal food. Kaylin tried to shift the conversation. "Mom," Harper told Lydia about your mushroom ravioli and your creme brulee. Lydia smiled at him with faint pity. "Kaylin, darling, let us not compare. Our families have very different styles, different levels of refinement." I set my fork down. "Refinement." She waved her hand, as though brushing away dust. "I only mean that you are clearly passionate about what you do. Some people express themselves loudly, others more quietly." "Mom's not loud," Kaylin muttered, already uncomfortable. Lydia reached for his arm reassuringly. "No one is accusing anyone of anything. I am only saying it is perfectly fine if Maris prefers things more dressed up. It is very Portland of her." Harper stiffened beside her. "Mom, it is all right," I said, but my chest tightened. "I understand." "Oh, good," Lydia said, relieved I had accepted whatever place she was quietly assigning me. "Because once we begin planning joint family events, we will need to make sure both sides feel balanced. Modesty can be beautiful. I am sure you agree." "I believe family matters more than style," I said. She smiled. "Yes. And understanding your place within the family is part of that." Kaylin stared at his plate. Harper stared at me. And Lydia Rowan lifted her glass, satisfied. That was the first time I felt it, the subtle pressure of a woman who needed to stand taller by nudging others lower. At the time, I didn't know whether she was threatened by me or simply accustomed to everyone playing beneath her. 3 days after that stiff lunch with the Rowans, my phone rang while I was prepping dough in the kitchen. I glanced at the screen and saw Harper's name. Her voice came through soft, almost musical. "Hi, Maris," she said brightly. "I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." "You are fine," I replied, wiping flour from my palms. "What is going on?" "Well," she stretched the word sweetly, the way someone does when they are about to hand you a gift wrapped around a favor. "My mom's birthday is coming up. It is kind of a big deal for her this year." "I see," I said, "and I was just thinking," she continued. "You know so many people in the industry, vendors, planners, all those things. Maybe you could recommend someone. Just a little guidance." The tone was warm enough to melt butter, but the request carried weight. I could hear it in the soft urgency between her words. I can give you a few names. I said, "Oh, that would be wonderful," she gushed. We were trying to keep it simple, but now the guest list is getting bigger. Mom really wants it to look polished. And I told her you just have a natural elegance when it comes to these things. I stopped, fingers tightening around the edge of the counter. Elegance. I repeated, "Yes." Harper chirped. "Honestly, you just have that touch. Everything you do looks so effortless." I thought of Kaylin's voice a week earlier. Tone it down. Keep it simple. Do not make it too much. "Harper," I said slowly, "your mother was very clear she preferred simpler things." There was a pause. Tiny, but telling. "Well, yes," she admitted. "But this is different. A birthday is special. She wants people to see well. She wants things to look nice." "Nice," I echoed. "Yes," Harper said quickly. "And you know how to do nice, not that we expect you to host or anything like that. Just guidance, advice. Maybe a tasting if we go with one of your contacts." I exhaled softly. "Send me what you have so far." "I can look," Harper squealed in gratitude. "You're the best, Maris. Seriously. I told Mom you would know exactly what direction to take." After we hung up, I leaned against the counter, letting the conversation settle like flour in still air. A few minutes later, Kaylin walked into the kitchen from the dining room where he had been wiping down tables. He looked nervous before he even spoke. "Mom," he began, rubbing the back of his neck. "Did Harper call you?" "She did," I answered. He nodded, avoiding my eyes. "Okay. So, I might have told them you would help." "Just a little." I stared at him. "Help how?" He swallowed. "They are stressed. I said you could make it elegant. I mean, you always do. Everything you touch looks well professional. Impressive. So you told them your mother would make their event elegant," I said. "But you told me making my own birthday elegant was a problem." He froze, the truth hitting him harder than he expected. "It is not the same." He tried. "Mom, this is about saving face." I finished. He shut his mouth. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The kitchen was quiet except for the faint hum of refrigerators and the soft settling of cooling pans. Kaylin finally whispered, "I did not mean to hurt you." "I know," I said, "but you did." His shoulders slumped, and he did not try to defend himself again. I turned back to my dough, pressing my palms into it slowly, shaping it with a steadiness I did not feel in my chest. Their family did not want my shine at my own table, but they were perfectly happy to borrow it at theirs. I did not realize how long the pattern had been in place until I began replaying the moments, one by one, the small favors. The big ones, the ones I told myself were done out of love, the ones that were quietly expected. It began with the engagement party. "Maris, you would not mind helping us with the setup, right?" Harper asked the night before, balancing a stack of folded napkins in her arms. I had already offered to provide the appetizers. Somehow that turned into preparing the entire spread. "What do you need?" I asked. Even though my legs ached from a 12-hour shift. "Oh, nothing big," Harper said quickly. "Just the grazing table. And maybe arranging the flowers, and laying out the candles, and plating the desserts." I stared at the list in her hand. "That seems like more than nothing." She laughed lightly. "You are so good at this. It will look amazing." "Not thank you. Not only if you have time. Just, you will do this." By the time the party started, my fingerprints were on everything. Guests praised the food, the layout, the ambiance. Lydia smiled graciously and said, "We really have a talent for hosting in this family." I did not correct her. Kaylin hugged me briefly, whispering, "Thanks." Mom. Then he disappeared into the crowd with Harper. I went home with swollen feet and a familiar mixture of pride and invisibility. The rehearsal dinner was next. Mom. The caterer backed out. Kaylin said over the phone, panic in his voice. We do not know what to do. When is the dinner? I asked. Tomorrow. Of course it was. I closed the bistro early and spent the entire night cooking. 50 people, 3 courses. A vegetarian option Lydia insisted upon. Harper met me at the venue wearing a dress I had never seen before. Something delicate and cream-colored. Maris, the plating looks so unique, she said, eyeing the dishes. Unique, I asked. Tilting my head. She nodded. You know, home style. Rustic. It will be fine for this crowd. I forced a smile. It is not supposed to be rustic. Oh, she murmured, already turning to greet another guest. The dinner was a success, of course it was, but when Lydia gave her little toast, she said, we are so grateful to the vendors who stepped in last minute. It takes a village. I was not a vendor. I was not the village. I was the unpaid labor. Then came the baby shower. Mom. We just need some little things, Kaylin said. Just appetizers and maybe a few desserts. That is fine, I said. How many people? Maybe 20? It was 55. Lydia's eyes brightened when she saw me carrying trays inside. Oh. How sweet, she said. You made things look special without making it too overwhelming. I am sure Harper appreciates the restraint. Restraint. I bit back a laugh. I bit. During the gift opening, Lydia rested her hand on her daughter's knee and said, I am so glad we kept things intimate. Outsourcing would have made it too impersonal. I stood in the back of the room, next to a stack of trays I would wash later. Harper caught my eye once and mouthed a silent thank you. It almost made up for everything. Almost. But after the guests left and I was packing up the leftovers, I overheard Lydia tell her sister Maris is very useful. She likes helping. Some people just need to feel needed. Useful, needed, not loved, not valued, just convenient. Years of memories flickered through my mind like scenes from a play where I had been cast without realizing it. Every event, every dish, every late night, every time Kaylin said, Mom, can you just, and every time I answered, of course. Sitting alone in the bistro after Harper's call about Lydia's birthday, I began to hear the truth woven through all of it. When they needed elegance, I had it. When they needed labor, I showed up. When they needed comfort, I delivered. When they needed to shine, I stepped back. But when I needed my son at my table, my seat stayed empty. I rested my palms on the counter, breathing in the faint smell of yeast and butter still lingering in the air. If I vanished tomorrow, they might miss the meals, the planning, the convenience. But me, I wasn't sure they'd notice I was gone. I was rolling out dough for the evening service when the front door swung open so fast it rattled the bells. Kaylin rushed inside, face flushed, hair a mess, breathing like he had run the length of Portland. Mom. He gasped. I need help. I didn't stop working. Hello to you too. He dragged his hands through his hair. Mom. Please. It's bad. Everything is falling apart. I folded the dough, dusting flour over my palms. What is falling apart exactly? He swallowed hard. Lydia's birthday. Of course. What happened? I asked. Keeping my tone even, he paced the length of the counter. The caterer canceled this morning. Something about a refrigeration issue. And the decorator got the date wrong. She thought it was next week. The venue coordinator called and said the linens they ordered were delayed. And he stopped, pressing a hand to his forehead. Mom, there are over 50 guests coming. Lydia invited some people from her charity boards. They are expecting something sophisticated. I leaned against the counter. And what did you come here to ask? He froze, hands dropping to his sides. Mom! He took a step closer. Can we please use your bistro? I kept my expression still. We can pay you, he added quickly. Or trade something I don't know. Mom, I am begging you. Please help me. There it was, the shift. The collapse of the careful distance he and Harper and Lydia kept whenever they needed to feel superior. When did Lydia find out things were falling apart? I asked. This morning. She is freaking out. Harper is freaking out. Everyone expects this party to be polished. Elegant, I asked. He swallowed. Yes. I dusted my hands off and walked around the counter to face him. So you need elegant. From me. Mom. His voice cracked. I know what I said. Before your birthday. I know how it sounded. I never meant. You said keeping things simple was easier. I reminded him. I know. He whispered. But I was being pulled in a million directions. I just didn't want anyone upset. And now I need you, he admitted, voice trembling. I need your help. I need your touch. I need what you do. I studied him not as my son, but as a man showing the first signs of understanding the cost of his choices. What does Harper want? I asked. He flinched. She thinks you might say no. And Lydia, he didn't meet my eyes. She said, this is what you are good at. Making things presentable. Presentable, I exhaled slowly. So they dismissed me when it suited them. And now that they need something only I can provide, they want my expertise. Mom, please, he whispered. I know it's unfair. I know it looks terrible, but I'm drowning here. I'm the one they're blaming. Harper is crying. Lydia is yelling. And if this party falls apart, they'll never let me hear the end of it. And what do you need from me? Kaylin, I asked. He breathed out. Desperate. Everything. The kitchen. Your staff, your planning, whatever you can give. Please, please help me. I am begging you. His voice cracked in a way I hadn't heard since he was a boy who scraped his knee and didn't want the world to see him cry. I didn't answer right away. I wiped my hands on my apron, feeling the weight of the moment settle across my shoulders. Decades of shrinking. Decades of showing up. Decades of being useful only when convenience demanded it. He looked at me with wide, pleading eyes. Mom, he said again, softer. I need you. I held his gaze. And for the first time in a long time, I truly considered what I owed and what I didn't. Kaylin waited in the middle of my kitchen like a man expecting a verdict. I folded my apron neatly, set it on the counter, and faced him fully. I will help, I said. His shoulders sagged in relief. Mom, thank you, but only under certain conditions. He blinked. Conditions. Yes. I kept my voice steady. You will apologize. Truthfully, without excuses, I did apologize. He insisted weakly. No. I said, you offered a string of excuses and asked me to stop making things heavy. That is not an apology. He swallowed. All right. I can do that. And, I continued, you will tell the truth about my birthday, to Harper, to Lydia, to anyone who heard the lie that you were obligated elsewhere. Color drained from his face. Mom, that you did not come because you chose not to, I said. Not because you were trapped. Not because it was an emergency. Because you made a decision. He took a step back. That will cause problems. For who, I asked. He hesitated too long. Mom, he finally whispered. Lydia will be furious. You do not understand how she gets... No, I said quietly. You do not understand how I am done shrinking so someone else feels taller. He rubbed his temples. Harper will think I am choosing sides. You are, I said, the side of truth. His breath faltered. This could start a fight in the family. It will not start anything, I replied. It will reveal what has already been happening. He stared at me, hands shaking slightly. You do not know how intense they get about appearances. I stepped closer, softer now. And you do not know how many years I spent twisting myself so your happiness could stay untouched. I am asking you to do one thing. Stop pretending I was the problem. He swallowed hard. I was trying to keep the peace. Peace for you, I said. Not for me. Silence stretched between us, the truth landing like a stone neither of us could ignore. Then I added the final condition, and no more hiding me. His eyebrows knit. Hiding you. You know exactly what I mean, I said. No more downplaying me so Lydia feels superior. No more asking me to make myself smaller. No more telling people I am just helping when I built my bistro from nothing. If I help with this event, it will be openly, not from the shadows. Panic flickered across his face. Mom, you are asking me to confront them. Yes, I replied, because I am done being the only one honest about what is happening. He exhaled, long and unsteady. They are going to hate this. They already dislike anything that challenges their image. I said, so the question is, can you live with the truth? He lifted his head slowly, eyes moist, voice barely above a whisper. I do not want to lose you. Then stop agreeing to their version of me, I said. He nodded once, a trembling, scared, but real nod. Only then did I pick up my apron again. Kaylin brought Harper and Lydia to the bistro the next morning. The moment they walked in, tension wrapped around the room like thick rope. Lydia didn't wait a second. Maris, we need clarity. Are you helping with my birthday or not? I wiped my hands on a towel. No, not under the circumstances we discussed. Lydia laughed sharply. Because of some misunderstanding. You're being dramatic. Harper shifted uncomfortably. Mom, please. But Lydia didn't stop. This event is important for our family. We cannot have it look what I asked. She hesitated, then slipped. We cannot let you outshine us. The room went still. Harper's mouth fell open. Mom, did you just say that out loud? Lydia stiffened. Well, someone had to. Kaylin looked between us, eyes widening as the truth finally surfaced. I stepped closer. So my birthday needed to be small, quiet, toned down. So your party could be the impressive one. Lydia crossed her arms. There is a social order to these things. People know the difference between families. Kaylin inhaled sharply. Mom, she doesn't mean yes. I do, Lydia snapped. Your mother doesn't understand our circle, Harper whispered, horrified. Mom, stop. I kept my voice steady. This isn't about a party. This is about where you think I belong. Lydia didn't deny it. That was enough. I turned to Kaylin. This is the truth you were afraid to confront. He looked crushed. I didn't know she felt that way. You did, Harper said softly. You just hoped she'd never say it out loud. Lydia scoffed. Harper, do not take sides. We are family. No, Harper said quietly. Family doesn't humiliate people. Lydia's eyes flashed. Kaylin, say something. He swallowed hard. Mom. He looked at me, then back at Lydia. I can't defend this. Lydia stepped back as if he'd slapped her. You're choosing her. I'm choosing what's right. He said. Silence spread, sharp as glass. I finally spoke. I won't host the party. I won't fix the mess. And I won't shrink anymore. Harper nodded, tears forming. I understand. Kaylin exhaled, defeated but honest. I'm sorry. Mom. Lydia turned toward the door, furious. We're leaving. But Harper paused, looking at me with quiet gratitude. The mask had slipped finally. and nothing would ever be the same. Kalen stood up so quickly, his chair scraped against the tile. Mom, please just wait. Do not say anything yet. I kept my hands folded on the table. I have already made my decision. Harper blinked at me, eyes still red from the confrontation with her mother. Maris, you're saying no. Yes, I said quietly. I am. Lydia scoffed, as if she had expected nothing less. Well, that is unfortunate. We will simply have to find someone more suitable. Harper shot her a warning look. Mom! She ignored it and reached for her purse. Kalen moved between us in a panic. Mom, this is not the time to draw a line in the sand. It is exactly the time. I answered. He ran both hands through his hair, pacing in quick, frantic steps. We have 50 guests. 50. The venue is unusable. The caterer canceled. Nothing is ready. If you do not help, this whole thing will explode. I felt a tug in my chest, an old, instinctive pull to save him from consequences he feared. But it loosened just as quickly. I understand. I said gently, but I will not fix this. He stopped pacing. Why? Because respect is not a condition you grant only when it is convenient. I said. Lydia rolled her eyes. Oh, for heaven's sake. But Harper cut her off. Mom, stop talking. Kalen's voice shook. Mom, I apologized. I told the truth. I agreed to everything you asked. What else do you want me to do? I took a breath. I want you to understand that my answer is not punishment. It is a boundary. He stared at me as if the word were foreign. A boundary, he repeated. Yes, I said. I am choosing not to step into a situation where I am treated like a tool. We are not treating you like a tool, he pleaded. Lydia snorted. Harper glared at her. I looked at him steadily. You asked me to make myself small for my own birthday. Now you want me to perform miracles to make someone else's shine brighter? I will not do it. He sank slowly into his chair. Mom, if this falls apart, it will be my fault. That is between you and them. I said. He shook his head, shoulders slumping. I do not know how to tell them the party is ruined. Harper spoke softly. Kalen, maybe it should fall apart. Lydia snapped toward her daughter. Harper Rowan, you do not mean that. I do. Harper whispered. I mean it more than anything. The silence that followed was heavy, but honest in a way our interactions rarely were. Kalen looked at me again, eyes damp. So there is nothing you will do. I reached across the table and took his hand, the way I did when he was 5 and scared of thunderstorms. There is something, I said softly. I will love you. I will support you. I will listen to you. But I will not rescue you from the consequences of someone else's arrogance. His throat tightened. You are really saying no? Yes. Harper closed her eyes, absorbing the finality in my voice. Lydia finally stood, the legs of her chair scraping like a hiss. We are leaving. This conversation is over. She marched toward the door. Harper followed slowly, turning back once to whisper, Thank you for standing up for yourself. I am sorry she cannot do the same. The door closed behind them. Kalen remained seated, crushed. I am not losing you. Am I? He asked quietly. I squeezed his hand. If this boundary costs us something, it was never a relationship built on love, only on need. He nodded slowly, the truth settling into him like medicine he did not want, but desperately required. For the first time, I did not soften the moment. I let the boundary stand. The Rowan birthday unfolded on a Saturday evening. I stayed at the bistro, closing early, cleaning slowly, letting the quiet settle around me. It wasn't peace, but it was a choice I finally owned. My phone stayed face down until it buzzed with a message from one of my former servers, Danny, who'd been hired last minute by the Rowans. You won't believe this. She wrote. I picked up the phone, hesitating. Another message came immediately after. It's a disaster. Before I could respond, She called. Maris, she said, whispering like she was hiding in a coat closet. Everything is going wrong. And I mean everything. I leaned against the counter. Tell me. First off, she said. The food they ordered from that fancy delivery service. Half of it arrived cold. The rest wasn't even what they chose. They tried to plate it themselves, but it looks tragic. Like someone dumped takeout into wedding bowls. I exhaled slowly. What about the servers? They're late, she said. 2 called in sick, and 1 showed up wearing jeans. Lydia almost fainted. Somewhere far away, I heard raised voices. And the guests? I asked. Oh, they're unimpressed, Danny whispered. You know those women Lydia invited from her charity boards, they keep looking around like they walked into the wrong event. I closed my eyes. Where's Kaylin running around like a candle in a hurricane? She replied. Every 5 minutes he apologizes for something he didn't do. My stomach tightened. And Harper. Trying to keep her mom from exploding, Danny said, but Lydia keeps saying the same thing. This would not be happening if she had just helped, meaning you. I sighed. Of course. I'm so sorry. Danny said gently. I know this must feel. It feels expected. I answered. There was a pause on the line. Then Maris, someone is asking for you. I stiffened. Who, Mrs. Turner? She said, naming a longtime customer who had been at the baby shower years ago. She told me to tell you something. What? Another pause. Then Danny read the text. They should have treated you better. Everyone can see it now. I felt my grip tighten on the phone. Danny continued softly. People are talking, Maris. Not about the food or the decorations. About how Lydia treated you. About how everything falls apart when you're not the one holding it together. A strange heaviness settled in my chest. Not pain. Not vindication. Something quieter. Something clearer. What's happening now? I asked. A muffled commotion erupted through the line. Raised voices. Footsteps. Someone shouting for the candles to be relit. Lydia is blaming the staff, Danny said. One of the guests literally said, This is what happens when you disrespect the woman who built your events for years. She didn't even whisper it. Another message popped onto my screen from a number I didn't recognize. This party is a mess. They owe you an apology. Another. Wish you were here. It would have been better. And another. Your food, your touch, your presence, none of it can be replicated. They're seeing that now. One final message arrived from Mrs. Turner herself. Your absence says everything they never wanted anyone to know. I stared at the screen. Each word settling deep, landing somewhere I'd kept locked for years. Maris, Danny asked quietly, Are you okay? I am, I said. And this time, I meant it. She exhaled. Good. Because, honestly, this party is over. Even if it's still happening. I nodded, gripping the counter with one hand. Thank you for telling me, I said. People are learning who you are, she murmured, and who they are. After she hung up, I sat alone in my empty bistro, lights dim, phone buzzing every few minutes with messages I didn't expect, little bursts of truth delivered by people who owed me nothing. The Rowan party was unfolding without me, and yet, somehow, my absence had become the loudest voice in the room. Kaylin showed up at the bistro after closing, long after the Rowan party had collapsed into its predictable mess. I was wiping down tables when he walked in, shoulders slumped, hair sticking up like he had run his hands through it 100 times. Mom, he said, voice cracking on the single syllable. I set the cloth aside. Come sit. He sank into the nearest chair, elbows on his knees, hands covering his face. For a moment, he just breathed shaky, uneven. I cannot keep doing this, he whispered. Tell me what happened. He dragged his hands down his face and looked at me with eyes I had not seen since he was a boy, wide, afraid, unsure. They blamed me, he began, for everything. The food, the decorations, the chaos. Lydia told her friends that I mishandled the planning, that I ruined her night. I stayed silent, letting him unravel at his own pace. And Harper, his voice wavered. She tried to defend me, but her mom shut her down in front of everyone. She said, "This is what comes from mixing families with different standards." I watched him flinch as he repeated it. Different standards. He echoed hollowly, "Meaning us, meaning you." He swallowed, throat tight. And I did nothing. I just stood there. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "Mom, I have been doing this for years, trying to make them think we fit, making myself smaller, making you smaller, hiding anything that made us look less than what I asked gently." His jaw trembled. Less than them. He looked at his hands. "You know what I used to think when I first met Harper's family," he said quietly. "I thought, this is what success looks like. This is what I'm supposed to reach. And if I play it right, they'll finally accept me." He inhaled shakily. "Her uncles own businesses. Her cousins travel to Europe every year. They talk about money like it's air. And He shook his head. "I came from coupons and double shifts. From you scraping every penny together so I could play soccer." He met my eyes. I was embarrassed. He whispered, "Embarrassed of how I grew up. Embarrassed of what you carried alone. And instead of being grateful, I tried to hide it." The confession cut through me slowly, not sharp enough to wound, but deep enough to ache. "That's why you wanted things simple for my birthday," I said. He nodded, tears gathering. I didn't want Harper's family thinking we were trying to show them up. I thought if they saw us as modest, humble, quiet, they'd accept me. I traded my integrity for their approval. "And mine," I asked. A tear slipped down his cheek. "I traded your dignity too." He broke then the kind of breaking a grown man doesn't allow himself unless the pain has softened him from the inside out. "I am so sorry, Mom," he said through a breath that shuddered. I thought if I made myself fit into their world, everything would be easier. I reached across the table and placed my hand over his. "And was it?" I asked softly. "No," he said instantly. "It was miserable. And it cost me the only person who ever showed up for me without question." His shoulders shook once. Quietly, I chose acceptance over integrity. He whispered, and I lost both. I held his hand without pulling him closer or pushing him away. Just steady contact. A bridge between a childhood he was ashamed of and a truth he could no longer outrun. He looked up, eyes red. "Can you forgive me?" I didn't answer yet. Forgiveness wasn't a switch. It was a road. But I let my thumb brush his knuckles, a small gesture, a quiet promise that the road hadn't closed completely. His breath eased, just a little, and in that silence, I felt something shift, not fully healed, not fully repaired, but no longer broken beyond recognition. A beginning, fragile and uncertain, but real. I did not start therapy because of the Rowans. I started because of the silence that followed the quiet that settled in my chest after Kaylin's confession. After years of shrinking, finally caught up to me. Dr. Harmon was soft-spoken, patient, and sharper than she looked. During our first session, she listened as I recounted decades of toning it down, decades of being useful instead of valued. When I finished, she folded her hands and said, "Maris, what you're describing is emotional neglect." The words landed with surprising gentleness. "Neglect," I repeated. "Yes, neglect isn't always yelling or cruelty," she explained. "Sometimes it's the absence of acknowledgement, the expectation that you will always be the one to bend." I stared at her, I thought that was being a good mother. She shook her head. It was survival, but you paid for it with pieces of yourself. I sat with that for a long moment, letting it settle like dust in sunlight. In our next sessions, we talked about boundaries, the word I had used without fully understanding its weight. She walked me through the difference between punishment and protection, how saying no wasn't hostility, how distance wasn't abandonment. You're allowed to prioritize your emotional safety, she said. Even at 67, outside the therapy room, I joined a small support group for parents navigating complicated adult children. At first, I listened quietly, hands folded in my lap. Then the stories began to echo my own. A woman named Jana talked about raising 2 sons alone while her ex-husband rewrote history. A man named Robert described a daughter who treated him as optional unless she needed money. Another woman, Lila, spoke through tears about in-laws who made her feel like a shadow at her own family's table. Every story felt like a mirror held just slightly to the side, close enough to recognize, different enough to soften my defensiveness. One evening, after a particularly emotional meeting, Jana touched my arm. You know, she said, we don't end up here because we failed. We end up here because we cared so much, we forgot to care for ourselves. Her words loosened something in me, a long, tight knot under my ribs. Driving home that night, Portland's lights blurred through the windshield, and I realized the guilt I'd been carrying wasn't mine. It belonged to years of being told my pain was an inconvenience. With therapy, I began rediscovering small parts of myself. The version of me before compromise became instinct. I lingered at the bistro a little longer after closing. Not because I needed to, but because I wanted to. I called old friends I'd drifted from. I cooked dishes I loved, not just ones people requested. Kaylin and I spoke occasionally gently, carefully, like 2 people learning a new language. He was trying, and I let him try. But I didn't bend to make the effort easier. Not anymore. One afternoon, after a session, Dr. Harmon walked me to the door. You're changing your emotional landscape, she said with a smile. That's rare at your age. I laughed softly. 67 does not feel so old today. Her smile deepened. Healing is possible at any age, Maris. And if healing is possible, then so is everything else. I stepped out into the cool air, breathing in a sense of possibility I hadn't felt in decades, a quiet rediscovery of a woman who had always been there, waiting for me to remember her. The year that followed didn't unfold in a straight line. Healing rarely does. But it moved steady, intentional in a way my life hadn't for decades. I hosted community nights at the bistro again, this time not to prove anything, not to impress, but simply because I enjoyed the sound of people laughing around my tables. On Thursdays, I tried new recipes with my staff, letting them experiment the way I once used to, before exhaustion became a way of living. One night, my sous chef, Mateo, said, Maris, you seem lighter lately. I smiled. Maybe I am. I reconnected with old friends I'd lost to the busyness of raising a son alone. We sat over wine and told stories of who we used to be, rediscovering pieces of ourselves the world had asked us to set down. Kaylin drifted in and out during those months. Sometimes he came by the bistro just to sit quietly at the counter. Other times, he stayed away for weeks. When he did show up, he walked carefully, like a person stepping around cracked glass. One afternoon, he came in after the lunch rush. Mom, he said softly, you're different. So are you, I replied. He looked at the empty table that once sat reserved for him on my birthday. I'm still figuring things out. I know. I said, you're allowed to. He hesitated before asking, are we? Okay, we're rebuilding. I answered. Slowly, honestly, he nodded. relief and uncertainty mixing in his eyes. I want to do this right. You will, I said. Doing it right just looks different now. He squeezed my hand briefly, then left for the afternoon. I watched him go, feeling something unfamiliar settle in my chest. Connection without obligation, love without sacrifice, and for the first time, that felt like enough. My 68th birthday fell on a quiet Sunday. I kept the bistro closed that morning, choosing instead to prep a few simple dishes for the evening. Nothing fancy, nothing loud, just food I loved. I was slicing peaches when the front door opened. Kaylin stepped inside slowly, holding a small box wrapped in plain paper. No fanfare, no rushing, no panic. "Mom," he said. His voice sounded steadier than I had heard in a long time. I set the knife down. "You're early." "I wanted to be," he replied, walking toward me. "Can we talk?" I nodded, wiping my hands on a towel. He placed the box on the counter but didn't push it toward me. "I'm not here to fix anything," he said. "And I'm not here because Harper asked me to be, or because something went wrong, or because I need help." His breath shuddered softly. "I'm here because I missed your last birthday, and I need to say what I should have said then." I kept my voice gentle. "All right." He looked at the floor for a moment, searching for words. "I hurt you. I chose people who valued appearance over truth, and I let them make me believe you were someone to hide." His eyes lifted to mine. That was wrong. Not complicated, not circumstantial, just wrong. The honesty in that sentence landed with a weight he didn't look away from. "And Mom," he swallowed hard, "I am sorry. Not for the fallout. Not for how it looks. I'm sorry for how it felt for you. For what I made you carry." He stepped closer. "You never deserved to feel inferior in any room, especially not because of me." The sincerity in his voice trembled. "But not from weakness, from truth. I didn't come to ask for anything," he said quietly. "I came because I don't want another year to pass without telling you the truth myself. Not through therapy, not through Harper, not through a moment of panic. Just me," I exhaled, feeling something loosen inside my chest. "Thank you," I said. "That matters." He nodded, eyes shining. "I know I have a lot to rebuild. I don't expect you to open the door all the way. I just hope you'll let me knock." I touched his arm. "Light but steady. I can do that." He breathed out, relieved, not triumphant, not entitled, just grateful. For the first time in a long time, the space between us felt open, not repaired, not perfect, but possible. I kept my birthday small that year, truly small. Just 4 friends from the support group, Mateo and 2 servers who had become family, and a few regulars who knew my story without needing the details. When the door opened near 6, Kaylin stepped inside quietly. No flowers, no grand gesture, just a covered dish in his hands and a soft, steady look. "Hi, Mom," he said. "I made something." I lifted the lid and felt my breath catch. "Peach cobbler." He nodded. "The way you used to make it when money was tight. I wanted to bring something that was ours." I touched the warm dish. "Thank you." He glanced around at the small group already seated. "Is it all right if I join?" "It is," I said. "There's a seat for you." He sat, not beside me, but a respectful space away, close enough to be present, far enough to honor what we were rebuilding. He didn't dominate the conversation or try to prove anything. He simply listened, ate quietly, and smiled when someone complimented the cobbler. During dessert, he leaned toward me and whispered, "I'm glad you invited me. I'm glad you came," I replied. He nodded, eyes soft. "I like this version of your birthday. It feels like you." After the guests left, he helped me box the leftovers. No pressure, no expectations, just simple presence. "I'll see you next week," he asked gently. Next week, I agreed. He hugged me brief, careful then, left into the cool Portland evening. I stood alone in the bistro, lights low, the smell of peaches lingering in the air. For the first time in decades, I felt full not from the food, not from the company, but from the quiet truth that my life now belonged to me. How many birthdays did I spend shrinking myself, and how many do I have left to live fully as who I am? If you've ever rebuilt yourself piece by piece, share your story in the comments, and subscribe for more.